guys. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Someone clearly tipped the band off on my favorite karaoke song. That's the first time I've heard it in that style. Well played, literally and figuratively, well played. Welcome to Talent Connect. It is so wonderful to be here with so many familiar faces and some new faces as well. For the first time ever, we welcome learning and development professionals to Talent Connect, learning professionals. Really indicative of the fact that our talent solutions business continues to grow and expand in terms of the value we can deliver from sourcing to learning and development and increasingly planning and analytics. This year marks the 9th Talent Connect. We're also coming up on the 10th anniversary of our flagship recruiter product. And in just a couple of months, it's going to mark the 2nd anniversary of our acquisition by Microsoft. And I know a number of folks in the audience very curious to hear how the integration has gone thus far to date. And it's gone very well. Thank you for asking. In all seriousness, the business is performing at a very high level, record levels of member engagement and revenue. Profitability materially exceeded our expectations for the fiscal year that just closed, and we couldn't be doing this without you. So thank you so much for your ongoing partnership. Also want to thank Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, along with the Microsoft leadership team that has been incredibly supportive throughout in terms of enabling LinkedIn to realize our mission and our vision. So last year, when we got together, we talked about the future of work, and specifically we talked about 3 trends. And a year later, all 3 of these trends remain intact, and if anything, they seem to be accelerating in terms of their importance and potential impact. We talked about AI and automation, and the fact that according to McKinsey, roughly half of all work activity currently is susceptible and can be impacted by artificial intelligence and automation. Fast forward a year later, and they've done some additional research that would suggest that somewhere on the order of 400 million to 800 million jobs by 2030 could be displaced by this very technology. Now, this is not a net job number. Jobs will be created as well, but it speaks to the scale and the scope of what is actually happening to the global workforce. And it's incumbent upon all of us to understand the impact that this technology is going to have on our current workforce, on the future workforce, where we'll need to reskill people, where jobs will be eliminated, where they'll be created, and develop the right workforce strategies accordingly. We also talked about the rise of independent work and independent workers, and the fact that last year at this time, roughly 60 million people in the American workforce could be classified as independent workers, with interest up to 90 million. And since that time, we've seen some economic research produced by the staffing industry, and you're reading that number correctly, north of $3.2 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars is being paid to contingent workers, to give you a sense of how big this has become as part of the global economy. And the trend shows no signs of reversing, in large part because of some demographic dynamics. Millennials, who within the next decade will clearly be the majority of the global workforce, who are increasingly interested in independent work, flexible work, and their side hustle. Some of these folks have 2 careers at once. And then baby boomers, who are retiring later and later in their careers and looking for more flexible and independent work opportunities. Lastly, we talked about the skills gap, or more specifically, the fact that there were multiple skills gaps as defined by supply-demand imbalances between available jobs and the skills and workers required to take on those jobs in any given locality, in a given point and time. And I want to just dive a little deeper on this idea of skills gaps, because since we last got together, we've had an opportunity to revisit our methodology for evaluating this specific trend and dynamic, and we wanted to share some pretty interesting insights with you. For starters, just wanted to walk through the change in the methodology. We now call it Skills Gap Analytics, very creatively titled. Put a lot of effort into that one. And specifically, we've gone from a relative measure to an absolute measure. So we have more granular insight and data available to us. We've also increased the comprehensiveness of the samples. So you can see here over 50,000 skills are being measured across north of 100 cities here in North America. So what did we find? Well, I know that software engineering and technology is a very urgent need right now, and people are really feeling that skills gap, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But it turns out software engineering is not the #1 skills gap in the United States. The #1 skills gap in the United States is soft skills. Soft skills like communication, written communication, oral communication, people leadership. And you can see the size of the gap there. The jobs that are aligned with these skills, salespeople, project management, customer service. This is the biggest skills gap we have in this country. And through broader definitions, that number of 1.6 million actually climbs to nearly 2 million. There's good news on at least two fronts with regard to the skills gap. The first is that in light of the rise of AI and the threat of this new technology in terms of displacing jobs, these more human skills, these more personal interactions are going to be more difficult for computers and AI to replicate. And so it creates a strong incentive for people to take on these skills and these jobs and the job stability that will ensue over the next several years. The second piece of good news is that we are capable of closing this gap now because we have the expertise, the thought leadership, the influencers within our organizations today. And if they're willing and able, they can take the time to educate and reskill your existing teams and your potential prospects outside of your company. And through LinkedIn Learning and what is increasingly a true platform approach to this, you can take existing coursework created by your talent and put it onto our platform, get it in front of your employees and engage them where they're spending time on LinkedIn. I'll give you a perfect example of this, and it's our very own Mike Gamson, who heads up our global sales organization, 5,000 people strong, across 30 cities around the world. And Mike created a course on how to sell to executives. I'll give you a little sample here.
My name is Mike Gamson, and for the last 10 years, I've been heading up sales at LinkedIn. I want to share with you a tool set, my game plan, that can make you confident enough to win when you're selling to executives. Let's get started.
I don't know about you, but I'm buying whatever that guy's selling. Am I right? Am I right? Not surprisingly, this has become by far the most popular course amongst LinkedIn employees. It also attracts prospects outside of the company and does a really nice job of building our sales talent brand. Mike is not alone in leveraging our platform for these capabilities, and you can see other examples, Netflix, Altimeter, leveraging their thought leadership to do the same. And increasingly, we see a number of customers that are taking advantage of this capability. Okay, turning now to the skills gap that I think is occupying the most share of mind with regard to this audience. We'll talk a little bit about software engineering. And when we talk about the skills gap with regard to software engineering, specifically, we're talking about skills like software development, we're talking about cloud computing, data storage, mobile development, web development, and you can see here AI, which is a real pressing need. And as I mentioned earlier, we now have an absolute methodology so you can get a sense of the size of these gaps. There's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel here with regard to this gap, and that is the fact that necessity is the mother of invention. And what we're starting to see increasingly is that companies are starting to cultivate and hire this kind of talent from non-traditional backgrounds. Case in point, at LinkedIn, we've taken a page out of the very successful German playbook for vocational training and apprenticeships and created our own apprenticeship program called REACH. And REACH doesn't require a 4-year degree in computer science for candidates to get started with the program. It just requires that they completed coding boot camp, which virtually anyone can do. And we're very excited about the initial results and the first cohort that went through this program, and we can't wait to share those results more broadly and maybe inspire others to take on similar programs. But we are certainly not alone in this regard. Microsoft has their AI school, which is a pretty cool mechanism to try to close the gap there. And we see companies like Apple and Dropbox and Pinterest and many others in Silicon Valley and beyond in the tech ecosystem, starting to draw talent from non-traditional backgrounds. The coding boot camps I mentioned a moment ago, and an organization like Europe, which prepares apprentices for organizations like those here. Last year, we had the opportunity for Gerald, the CEO and founder, to talk a little bit about the approach that Europe takes, and we were thrilled to see so many strong connections being made there. For as much as we're able to move the needle along these lines, the fact remains that the gap is going to continue to exist for at least the foreseeable future. And the reason, in part, is because of growing demand for this kind of talent. The examples I've used thus far are comprised of the tech ecosystem. But in a sense, every company is now a technology company when it comes to demand for software engineers, because of the number of organizations on a global basis now going through their own digital transformations. We don't think that this trend is going to reverse anytime soon. And no matter where in the world I go and the customers I talk to, I feel a sense of urgency around this skills gap that I haven't seen in the previous decade. So the question remains, how do you compete for the talent you need to meet demand, to innovate, and to continue to grow within your organizations? And I know the demands and the pressures being placed on all of you in talent acquisition to close these gaps. So what can you do about it? We took a look at the top companies on LinkedIn as measured by demand from our members. These are the companies that our members are most interested in working for. And one of the things that we started to see was that these are organizations that have very clearly defined what they're about. They have a clear sense of who they are. They also are leveraging data in increasingly sophisticated ways, products like LinkedIn Talent Insights, to develop workforce strategies more proactively, more dynamically, and to target the right prospects and the right talent pools to fulfill those workforce strategies. And these organizations are increasingly developing competencies around building their talent brand, telling their story, getting that story in front of the right person at the right time in a really authentic way. Each of these companies has very clearly defined their what. And when we talk about what at LinkedIn, we're talking about mission, we're talking about vision. With regard to mission, a single overarching objective for the organization that's measurable, realizable, and hopefully inspirational. And with regard to the vision, that's the dream, it's true north, it's the sense of purpose that unites people behind a singular objective. And that sense of purpose is growing increasingly important for a millennial generation that increasingly makes decisions based on what these companies are trying to accomplish. But it's not just about the what. It's not just about the shareholder value that your organizations are creating. It's not just about the revenue that you're generating. It's not just about the number of customers and consumers that you're reaching. Increasingly, it's not just the what, it's also about the how. Particularly in this day and age today, people care about how business is being done. Your employees care about the how, your prospects care about the how, your customers care about the how. And when we talk about the how at LinkedIn, we're really talking about both culture and values. And with regard to culture, we're talking about the collective personality of your organization, who you are and who you aspire to be. With regard to values, we're talking about the first principles upon which you make day-to-day decisions within your organization. One of the most frequently asked questions I've been getting over the last decade as we continue to grow LinkedIn is how do we make sure our culture and our values, which has become one of our most important competitive advantages, how do we ensure that they continue to flourish and continue to scale? We've grown from 338 people roughly a decade ago to north of 13,000 today. And while I know that pales in comparison to some of the huge multinational companies here at Talent Connect today, we have observed some very key learnings and what we believe to be best practices. The first and most important begins with all of you in talent acquisition. You're on the front lines. You're the ones recruiting and bringing new talent into the organization. And it's absolutely imperative that that organization is aligned with the prospects and the talent that you're bringing into the company. And you can't lower that bar. You can't compromise, no matter how much pressure you're under, to fill those seats and meet demand. It really begins there. And that's just the beginning. It's certainly not the end. Once those people have been hired, it starts again on day one with regard to your onboarding practices. And it's so important that those future managers and leaders within your organization understand that what they heard during the recruiting process wasn't just a sales pitch. It wasn't you saying what they wanted to hear. It's not cheerleading. It's real. It's the way you run and build your organizations. It's the way you create value for your customers. And beyond onboarding, beyond that first day, a continuing process through learning and development of training people to understand how they can most effectively manage, lead, and navigate your companies. And then another best practice that we developed started many, many years ago. And that was when evaluating the performance of our employees, not just looking at the results that they were generating, but looking at how they were generating those results with equal weighting, the extent to which our employees were walking the walk on our culture and values, not just talking the talk. We were very excited a few days ago to announce our intention to acquire Glint. Glint is a leading, Sounds like we have some Glint customers in the audience. We are also a Glint customer. We are huge fans. We've been Glint customers for the last couple of years. We love the flexibility of the product. We love that deep analytical firepower. But for us, this was so important because it enabled us to go beyond anecdotal measurement in terms of the extent to which we were walking the walk and actually measure it. Measure how we were engaging our employees. Measure whether or not they understood our purpose and our what. Measure the extent to which people understood and appreciated and manifested our culture and our values. So we're very excited about bringing Glint into the family. And as we think about bringing Glint into the family, it's important that everyone understands, like other data-driven products at LinkedIn, this will all be about members first, our most important value, maintaining the trust of our members and how we are good stewards for member data. And historically at LinkedIn, we've always taken what we call the 3C approach: consistency, clarity, and control. With regard to consistency, we want to minimize changes to terms of service and how we're leveraging data. Trust is consistency over time, and there's no substitute for either one of those things. And when we do make changes, inevitably changes will be made, we want to be as clear as possible about how those changes will unfold. We're not going to bury it in the fine print or in legalese. And lastly, we always want to maximize the control that we're offering to our members in terms of how their data will be leveraged. So we're very excited to welcome Glint to the family, and along with recruiter and talent branding and learning and development and talent insights and this analytical capability, we feel like we're in a better position than ever before to help you up and down this stack with regard to reinforcing your what and your how. While we're on the subject of what, I did want to take a moment and go a little deeper on LinkedIn's vision. I want to do that for two reasons. The first is it provides an opportunity to say thank you, because our vision to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce can't happen without you, without the people day in and day out creating these opportunities and connecting our membership and your talent with opportunity, not only in terms of recruiting, but providing them the skills they need to take on the jobs that are and will be, and not just the jobs that once were. So on behalf of LinkedIn, thank you so much for everything you do to help to make this vision a reality. I also wanted to share a little bit more of the how we're going to go about this, in the hopes that it could better align our customers, our partners, and LinkedIn in terms of making this vision a reality. So by far the most important word in this vision is every. And the reason for that is that historically, our mission has been focused on connecting the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Roughly 780 million knowledge workers or professionals in the world, and that will always be our core. We will always prioritize that. But we want to look beyond our core audience. We want to look to every member of the global workforce in terms of the value that we can generate. Middle-skill workers, frontline workers, blue-collar workers. And the way we're going to continue to create value for every member of the global workforce is by developing the world's first economic graph. This is our effort to digitally map the global economy across these 6 pillars. So first, we're going to create a profile for every member of the global workforce, all 3 billion of them, not just the 780 million knowledge workers in the world. We'd like for there to be a profile for every company in the world. When you include small businesses, there's north of 60 to 70 million companies in the world. We're going to have a digital representation for every job that's digitally accessible and available at any given time. A digital representation for every skill and the courses required to get those jobs offered by those companies. A profile for every university, vocational training facility, junior college that enables people to acquire the skills to get the jobs offered by those companies. And a publishing platform that enables every individual, every company, and every university to share their professionally relevant knowledge if they're interested in doing so. And then we're going to allow intellectual capital, working capital, and human capital to flow to where it can best be leveraged, in the hopes of lifting and transforming the global economy. That's our vision. We've been making good progress with your help, and you can see some pretty big numbers here, coming up on 600 million members of LinkedIn who've signed up. You can see fast approaching 30 million companies, but the number I want to go a little deeper on today is this jobs number. There are now 20 million jobs, active jobs, searchable on LinkedIn. This is up from roughly 350,000 just 4.5 years ago. This is a demonstration of the power of operationalizing our vision and developing the right roadmap and the right strategies. So when it comes to creating value for every member of the global workforce, we wanted to better understand the composition of these jobs. And it turned out there's some pretty interesting data behind it. So when you double-click on the 20 million, 46% of those jobs are relevant for frontline workers, blue-collar workers, middle-skill workers. Nearly half, 46%. And it turns out we have roughly 80 million members that already occupy those segments, blue-collar, frontline, middle-skill, on a global basis. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start to prioritize this in a completely different way. And we've identified 5 segments of the global workforce. Segments such as retail and food service, where there's a heavy frontline component. And we're going to drill very deeply on the jobs that are most relevant for these 5 segments. We're going to standardize the data. We're going to dig in and prioritize the matching recommendations and the relevancy algorithms. And we're going to try to create opportunity for these folks. And along the way, we're going to better understand product market fit for an audience that goes beyond LinkedIn's traditional core. So we're very excited about this initiative and the prospects going forward, and can't wait to keep you up to speed as we make progress. When we talk about creating opportunity for every member of the global workforce, it's not just about extending beyond our core. It's also about making sure that our core and aspirant professionals feel like they too have access to opportunity. And so that means also focusing on underserved segments of our member population, underrepresented minorities, veterans, opportunity youth, and people that have all the aptitude, all the requisite skills, but may not necessarily have graduated from a prestigious university. They may not have worked at the right kind of companies, and they haven't had a chance to build out their networks so that they can take full advantage of a platform like LinkedIn. To some extent, folks like this are victims of unconscious bias, where people aren't intentionally shutting them out, but they are seeking people like themselves, which is very much human nature. So how can we begin to create opportunity for our entire core audience? One of the means through which we can do that is through a recently launched product called the Career Advice Hub. And this enables members of LinkedIn to raise their hand and ask for help. Ask for someone to open a door, get some advice in terms of the next step of their career. and for people on LinkedIn to volunteer to mentor them and leverage their own networks and provide a helping hand to people they wouldn't necessarily normally reach out to. And thus far, the results are very encouraging. We've got over 2 million members that have raised their hands and asked for help, and over 1 million mentors have volunteered on LinkedIn. So off to a promising start here, and we look forward to continuing to scale this effort. Broadening the aperture through which all of our organizations can increasingly diversify our talent base, make it more inclusionary, a greater sense of belonging is not just about products like this, it's also about our business practices. And one of the things that we're very excited about, that's particularly relevant for this audience, is the brainchild of our head of recruiting, Brendan Brown, who many of you may know, and it's called RAMP. And it's an apprentice and mentorship program for those very same underserved segments of the population, underrepresented minorities, veterans, opportunity youth, people later on in their careers who are making material changes to their path. It's a 6-month apprenticeship program, and this too is off to a really strong start in terms of the effectiveness of these apprentices and where we believe they're going to be headed in terms of their ability to help us diversify the talent flowing into LinkedIn. Brendan and team had a few different objectives here. First, he wanted to ensure that our recruiting team was the single most diverse team functionally at LinkedIn, and they've already accomplished that goal. Going forward, over the next 10 years, Brendan would like to see 1,000 graduates from this RAMP program. And in success, we'd like to open source this. This is not going to be proprietary. We want to share this with all of you, and we want to learn from you and your best practices and your equivalent of RAMP, and see if you too can leverage our learnings here. And we're certainly not alone in trying to innovate in terms of how we create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. You can see behind me a number of examples from customers that are here today, and this is just a small sample of some of the amazing work taking place across different kinds of companies, different industries, and all over the world. And I hope for those of you that are interested in learning more about these efforts, you have the opportunity today and tomorrow to reach out to some of these companies and to share notes and to take notes and learn about how we can continue to make progress along these lines. I believe our vision is more important than at any time in LinkedIn's history. Yes, the global economy seems to be booming. There's no doubt about that. But it's also important to recognize that socioeconomic stratification is hovering near historic highs in certain regions around the world, the United States included. Here in the US, we have entire towns and cities that are being bypassed in terms of the creation of opportunity. And even for those people that do have jobs and the means to take care of their families, increasingly there's a fear that their kids won't have access to opportunity down the road. This conflation of dynamics is leading to a lot of anxiety, the sense of disenfranchisement, that people don't have a voice, that they can't have access to economic opportunity, that the playing field is not level. That leads to anger, which subsequently leads to a rise in tribalism that we're all feeling. And it seems like people are tearing each other down and apart at a time when we need to be building each other up so that we can take on some pretty significant challenges that the world faces. And one of the fastest ways we can reverse this trend is by creating economic opportunity for everyone, by leveling the playing field. And we won't just profoundly change the lives of the individuals for whom we do this. We can enable them through our platforms to create economic opportunity for others and to become role models for the next generation. This is what we do at LinkedIn. This is our purpose. This is what motivates our team. This is what inspires me. We're very much looking forward to making this vision a reality with you together. Thank you.